Can you elaborate more on working for that company that promoted music?
Oh, Showco
Yeah.
Sound?
How did you get that job?
It was an ad in the paper.
Really?
Yeah.
And were you unemployed or you?
Yeah, I was. I must have been there, wasn't I?
And what was their ad for? Engineer or
Yeah.
sound engineer or no?
Engineer.
And their business was promoting concerts?
Their business was providing a sound system for rock groups.
Ah.
And we also supplied an engineer to work the console for the mix of the sound and all that stuff.
Yeah.
We supplied that guy and all the audio equipment for a concert.
And what was your?
And there was a lease, you know.
What was your role in it?
I was the manager of the repair shop, or if we were going to invent something new, you know, the electrical shop they called it.
So invent like amplification or what?
Yeah.
What kind of stuff did you invent?
I don't think I can't remember. I don't think I ever invented anything while I was there. There was another guy there that his name was Larry, and he had been doing all that stuff. He kind of was the inventor at that point, and he just kind of went off to the side and started doing his own thing, whatever that was at the time. And they gave me, you know, they made me take over that part of his job, essentially. Where the place of business, there was two parts to the place. One was the engineering building where I worked, and then they had an office up in downtown Dallas, or close to being downtown. And that's where all the booking and the interface to the bands all happened. And we rarely saw any bands because they never came down to where we were.
You never saw any rock stars?
No. They always went up to the office, so the business office downtown. And well, like I say, that engineering building that I was in, they had a wood shop, and they would make these big speaker cabinets, make a big box and put a absorbent material in it, fiberglass or something, and mount this big 15-inch speaker.
What kind of speakers do you remember? Altex or JBL or?
I think they were JBL.
Yeah.
One of those big names like that.
Yeah.
And then they had this little cube-shaped amplifier. It wasn't stereo. It was one amplified channel.
Yeah.
And it drove that speaker. And I think it was solid state, as a matter of fact. It didn't have tubes. They had transistors.
But you had to get all those in series, right? The soundboard?
Yeah, they did all that, hooking it up to the console and all that stuff. I never did get involved with any of that. I just kind of hung out, and if cables got connectors needed to be changed, I would resolder those. And most of the time I didn't do anything because they have these roadies that work for Showco that went with whenever a tour, like Led Zeppelin was one of their biggest customers at that time. I never saw any of the band members, but they would set up the whole thing, you know, on the stage, and they had roadies, what they call that lifted.
Oh yeah.
The roadies, they had rider rental trucks, and they put all the amps and shit for a system in there, and drove it to the first gig of the tour. And the roadies unloaded all the shit and hooked it all up. And one of the guys that went along, he wasn't called a roadie, he was called a sound engineer, and he went and worked the console once everything was hooked up and did sound checks, all that stuff. One of the tricks that they had was they had a graphic attenuator filter, you know what I'm saying, you can filter
An
out
equalizer?
yeah, an equalizer. And it would, but each frequency had a slider.
Yeah.
You could boost it
I
or
used to have
cut
one of
it.
those in my car.
Boost it or
They
cut
were
it.
popular in the 80s.
There was about, I don't know, 8 or 10 of these
Yeah.
slider.
You'd create a sound wave.
Exactly, of course. So what they would do, the engineer would do, was once they got all the mics on and turned on and all that, in order to keep feedback from happening during the show, they would start turning the sound up, and whenever it started to feedback, they would go up and notch out that frequency
Okay.
until it quit, and then they'd turn it up some more, and if it howled again, they'd find another frequency, and when they got done,
Yeah.
that equalizer equalized the whole room or whole area. And so when they started out, they had that gain wide open to those. It was about a 3,000 watt system of audio. But I was back to the factory guy. They made these cabinets for the speakers, and they had sponsored a rock band called DOA. Dead on Arrival.
Aren't they a punk band? No, I'm thinking SOD, Stormtroopers of Death.
They were out of Fort Worth.
Okay.
The band was there. And we built this special system just for them. Because we had, I guess, Showco was sponsoring them. And to make all this stuff, they had people back in the wood shop sawed out parts and shit to put it all together. This one kid shot his hand off with a radio alarm saw.
Oh, Jesus. Wow.
And of course they picked up the hand, and and the hospital was just.
Were you there when that happened?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But the wood shop was back in the back, and I didn't know anything about it till here they come running out of the building, and he had stuck his nub inside in his gut and was bent over to stop the bleeding.
Yeah.
And somebody else had his hand.
Oh, my God.
Well, what the fuck's going on? And they went up to the hospital, and it turned out that the hand surgeon up there, that hospital is Parkland, the same one that the president went to after they shot him up, Parkland Hospital. Anyway, they didn't want to retouch the hand because it was too mangled.
Oh, man.
So they just dressed it and pulled the skin around it and let it heal up. And the last time I saw him, he had one of them hook things, chrome plated on his hand.
Yeah.
Once or twice I found a baggie of weed in the speaker cabinets. Somebody had put it in there and forgot about it.
Well, that was a big deal. It's like a felony, right, in Texas.
Oh, yeah. Even seeds.
Yeah.
Well, they could arrest you for.
Yeah. Crazy.
And then there was another guy that they hired later on after I was already there to design this new something. I forget what it was he was working on. Oh, it was a lighting control. That Showco was going to now start lights, how they got lights now.
Yeah.
Light shows and shit
Oh, yeah.
to go with the band. They were going to start doing that, and they hired this other guy to be in that division and help him do. And he was circuit design and all, but I got to be friends with him, and he had I think he was married, but anyway, he had a woman there that was either his wife or just his girlfriend. Anyway, they invited me and Linda over one evening on the weekend to dinner, and, just hang out.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did that. On the way over there that night, we rolled, I think, 3 or 4 joints. Linda had them in her purse, and we had one that we lit up, and we were smoking it going down the road in that van, that Econoline van.
Yeah.
And there's a little old town that we went that way rather than going this other way because it was kind of back roads and we didn't want anybody to hassle us, right?
Right.
So we also had, we went by this little town's post office. It had a post office and a filling station, and that was about it as far as the town was concerned. So we went back and forth that way a lot. But this was in the evening, and a state trooper was hid out somewhere down there, and he pulled in behind
hippie van drives by.
Exactly. But
we saw
whenever we saw that, we went by this guy. We saw him,
Smoke.
We threw that
like a Cheech and Chong movie.
We threw that roach out.
Yeah.
But she still had, I think, 2 or 3 of them in her purse.
Yeah.
So when they pulled up, she had, unbeknownst to me, she put those joints in her mouth and started chewing them up. And she ended up swallowing them.
Right.
She got stoned in hell.
I bet.
Anyway, they says, where I know you got weed on you. I could smell it because we'd just been smoking. I can smell it. And I said, we don't have anything. I don't know what you're talking about. So they went to the back and opened up the back of that van, those doors. No, there was 2 burlap bags full of cow manure that we had bagged up and to put on our garden. This guy that had a ranch and they grabbed that bag and thought it was weed.
Yes.
Like that. God, they choke spot, threw it back down. And they said, go on. They just let us go.
That's awesome.
But that was scared shitless because, it was a felony back then. We for sure went to jail.
Yeah. Well, I guess you better call the interview.
That's pretty much all the Showco that I remember of any note that'd be worth telling about. Oh, there's one other story.
All right, tell the last story. Yeah.
While I was there, this guy came in one day and said his name was Smith Craig. Smith was his given name, and Craig was his family name.
Interesting first name.
And he said that he had bought a sound company in Atlanta, Georgia, and was just trying to figure out how you do this. And he was going to come up there and work in order to learn how to do it, how we did it, because we were the best there was at that time.
Okay.
And he said he told them, the managers that oversaw this engineering building, that he'd work for free in order to just hang out and see how we did stuff. And they said, well, we'll just hire.
Sounds like a spy to me.
We'll go ahead and hire you.
Yeah.
And pay you money. And he agreed to do that. Anyway, this guy eventually he got put on the touring of Jesus Christ Superstar that was, it was in New York City.
I saw that tour in '76.
I'm sure it was.
It came here and I saw him in San Rafael.
But I think if I'm not mistaken, the one that he was with was up in New York somewhere. And it ran for like 2 or 3 years.
Well, yeah, it was popular.
And anyway, after the tour was over and they finally, quit doing that, this guy absconded a whole system.
No way.
And it just disappeared. And when they tried to find out...
He took the whole sound system? In a van or something?
No, in the Ryder trucks.
Wow.
The U-Haul trucks.
Right, yeah.
Apparently, after they loaded all the shit in the truck, apparently he talked them into letting him drive it back to wherever or bringing it back to Dallas, because it had been out there a year or so. Well, he disappeared with the system, and never to be seen again.
Well, that name had to be bogus.
Well, they tried to find this guy, and of course, there was no such person.
Yeah, of course. Smith Craig.
That was crazy.
Wow.
But that crowd, he would come out there to Grapevine, and we'd smoke with him, and Linda and I would smoke, you know. And he would tell these stories about things that happened. One thing, he pulled out a bong we'd never seen before. This when bongs were real new, and he says, "I met Cheech and Chong, and they gave me this bong."
Really?
That's what he said. But I don't know if that was true or not.
Chong now has this whole line of pot and bongs.
Yeah, they've been running ads on Twitter.
Yeah, I bet.
They're gummies is what they're pushing on Twitter.
Yeah. I saw
they're 10.
It's very detailed ad.
I think they're 10 or something. Level 10.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's pretty much
all
the crazy stuff I remember. Showco.
Well, until next time. Thanks for your stories.
All right.
Those were good.